Yeah.
Good evening. You're listening to Israeli News Live, Yana Ben-Nun, and I have in studio with me Deborah Tavares. And I missed Deborah. It's been some time since we did show together, but Deborah has some very interesting information today, and this is going to be a very short interview, but she wants to alert all of you to something extremely important. So, welcome, Deborah.
Yana, thank you so much. So this is vital because this is an emergency alert. It's what the banker's imminent plot is about. And I'll request, after I discuss this, that everybody verify this with your own bank. And let's get into this. First, I want to say what it says in the NASA War document that I've had on my website for many years. I am reading from page 83 right now. And it talks about how the civilian population in the continental United States will be attacked with internet warfare. And it says national banking systems and computers. They will attack the buildings, power, software, hardware. There will be interruptions in national and international payments, and the systems will be irrecoverable. That's on page 83. So why am I reading that to you? Well, I need you to understand what is in your bank statement. I just came across this in my bank statement the other day, and that's why I recommend that whether you get utility statements, bank statements, anytime there is an insert in your Rothschild mailers, you must read them. So this is in my bank, and I won't name the bank because I know that this is every bank, because the international bankers control all banks. And this is an addendum to the deposit account disclosures that we all have signed. And it is also involving the safety deposit box rental agreements, terms, and conditions. And they're telling us that this was effective December 1st of 2020. Well, right in the second line, it says effective December 1st, 2019. So what this looks like to me is it's retroactive. So what am I concerned about, and why should you be concerned? Because here's what it says. One of the changes are, when I came across this word, I didn't know what it meant. It's called force majeure. M-A-J-E-U-R-E. Now I'm going to read what it says in my bank statement, and then I'm going to go over the definition of force majeure and why you all need to know about the inside job that's being cooked up right now. So it says in my bank statement, quote, force majeure, new section was added to read, quote. And it says you agree. That means the customer, the bank customer agrees that we, the bank, will not be liable for any loss, expense, failure to perform, or delay resulting from any act or event beyond the bank's reasonable control that prevents the bank from performing the bank's obligations under the customer's agreement with the bank, such as acts of nature. Now let's talk about that for a moment. Acts of nature. Nature has been taken over by weather weapon technologies. So I'm going to just continue to read without adding anything at this point. Such as acts of nature, military actions, strikes or labor disputes, embargoes, government orders, civil unrest, terrorist attack, failure of communication or electrical systems, power outages, outbreaks, epidemics, pandemics, and any other cause not within our reasonable control. It also talks about sanctions laws, and they've included to mean economic or restrictive measures enacted, administered, or enforced by the United States of America the United Nations Security Council, the European Union, and the French Republic or other relevant sanctions authorities, collectively sanctions authority. Now, did you know that all of these various authorities were involved in your banking? Well, they are. I didn't know this either. Then another portion of this change that is now occurring also talks about arbitration. This is very disconcerting as well. It talks about the change to prior arbitration disputes. And it says this: agreement to arbitrate disputes. Section was modified, so it now reads, quote, except as this arbitration provision otherwise provides, if you have a dispute with the bank and you are not able to resolve the dispute informally, you, the bank customer, and the bank agree that upon demand by either the customer or the bank, the dispute will be resolved through the binding arbitration process set forth in this arbitration provision. Now, it's most important to understand that the court system is corrupt and it will not stand in our defense. So if you think you can discuss weather weapons being the cause of natural events, you're sadly mistaken. They're setting us up to take everything away. So let's talk about what force majeure definitions are. You can type this in for yourselves as I did, and I'm going to go over that right now. Okay, so force majeure refers to a clause that is included in contracts to remove liability for natural and unavoidable catastrophes that interrupt the expected course of events and prevent participants from fulfilling obligations. Key takeaways. Force majeure is a clause that is included in contracts, again, to remove liability for natural and unavoidable catastrophes. It also encompasses human actions, such as armed conflict. It also, there are questions about what it is and is not foreseeable. In the legal sense, have been raised given the increased awareness of pandemics, asteroids, supervolcanoes, cyber threats, and nuclear warfare. French law applies 3 tests for whatever and whether a force majeure defense is applicable. The event must be unforeseeable, external, and irresistible. Understanding force majeure. Force majeure, again, is a French term that literally means greater force. It is related to the concept of an act of God, an event for which no party can be held accountable, such as a hurricane or tornado. Now, let's be very clear. All of these acts of God that they are being held liable for are created through technology. So this is me talking.
Right.
So they are weaseling out of of any obligation they have for your funds or your agreement with them by stating acts of God. So continuing, force majeure also encompasses human actions, however, such as armed conflict. Generally speaking, for events to constitute force majeure, they must be, again, unforeseeable, external to the parties of the contract, and unavoidable. These concepts are defined and applied differently depending on the jurisdiction. Force majeure is a contract clause that removes liability. It removes liability for all the weapon systems that are being used on us. So this would include getting access to your safe deposit boxes, to the money in your accounts. And it goes on in this definition of force majeure to say, as time goes on, the world is becoming aware of natural threats we were previously ignorant of, such as solar flares, asteroids, pandemics, and supervolcanoes. We are also developing new human threats, such as cyber, nuclear, and biological warfare capabilities. These have raised questions about what is and is not foreseeable in the legal sense. We're also becoming increasingly aware of human agency in events that have generally been considered external or acts of gods, such as climatic. They're talking about climate change and seismic events. Ongoing litigation is exploring questions of whether drilling and construction projects contributed to the very natural disasters that rendered them unworkable. The concepts that underpin force majeure are shifting. So they can redefine force majeure in your contractual agreement when they can prove or feel that they can prove that these are unavoidable catastrophes. In other words, of greater unforeseeable damages to all of us.
Deborah, I see it as a legal theft. They're going to basically steal all of our money, resources, and everything from the citizens, and they're making excuses. Oh, it's just natural events, like you said, like the document says. Now, for people to understand, this was an insert that came in your statement, bank statement.
This came in my checking bank statement a few days ago.
So they're basically covering themselves that they're not going to give you the money that you have in a bank in the case of all of these things you have read to us. And these things, all of them, are basically what they are doing themselves.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. This would include safety deposit and rental agreements for those safe deposit boxes as well. So what I am suggesting that everyone does is check with your bank. Find out if you have a force majeure in the contractual agreement that they have with you that you may not know. Again, force majeure. M-A-J-E-U-R-E. Find out for yourself. I now know that this is in all the banks, statewide, nationwide, that this bank is. So it's a major bank, and it says that this is all states. It includes business accounts. So this is an emergency alert because we're heading into a great reset now, where monetary is meeting with digital. And this would be a way in which they would create and level out the playing field. Because what the goal is to eliminate any definition between haves and have-nots. This has been foretold for many, many decades in all the documents that I've come across that talk about equalizing the haves and have-nots. And this is the plan. This is a plan. This is in the NASA war document, as well as many other documents, the wildlands interface documents that I've discussed over the years. And this is an urgent piece of information, because I know most people do not read their inserts in their statements. Yana, I think I'll just go over one other statement that I found in my utility bill. And again, I would urge all of you to read your statements, because these are the kinds of things you will read. This is from Edison, Southern California Edison, the utility company in Southern California. Now, I am in the Northern California area with Pacific Gas and Electric, and I do get bills out of Southern California as well. And I can tell you this verbiage is the same in both utility companies' inserts. Different printouts, different appearance, but the same verbiage. Now, why am I going to read this to you? Because this is what we face as a real death threat to society. And this was an insert, and is an insert. And it says, first, it says, are you prepared? Emergencies can happen anytime. It's most important to be prepared. Build an emergency kit. You should keep a kit at home, work, and in your car. Make a plan and ensure everyone in your household understands the plan. Be informed. Learn about the disasters that could happen in your area. In other words, the disasters they are creating in your area. Look for life-saving resources available to you and your family. And stay aware and stay safe. Now, that is only the top section of this insert, entitled, Are You Prepared? Here is the main portion of what I want to discuss. And it says this: understanding EMF. That is electromagnetic fields. And it says that many questions have been raised about the possible health effects of exposure to power frequencies, electric and magnetic fields, EMF, which are found wherever you have electric power. This article contains information that will help you understand the EMF issue, plus practical tips you can use if you want to reduce your exposure at home and at work. And it goes on. Can EMF harm your health? And this is the real takeaway here. This is extremely worrisome. It says the results from many research studies have been evaluated by international, national, and California EMF research programs to determine whether EMF poses any health risk. Given the uncertainty of the issue, the medical and scientific communities have been unable to conclude that usual residential exposures to EMF cause health effects, or to establish any standard or level of residential exposure that is known to be either safe or harmful. These conclusions remain unchanged by current studies. The WHO report concluded that evidence linking ELF, that's extremely low frequencies, magnetic fields, and childhood leukemia, for example, is not strong enough to be considered causal, but sufficiently strong to remain a concern. Now, I could go on reading this horrific information to all of you, but this is an insert that I received in my bill from my Rothschild orchestrated electric company that you have as well. Now, I posted this on my website some time ago because I was reading portions of this to the city council, not to the city council because they're all corporations and they don't work for us, but so that you could see the film of how I presented this to them, but really talking to all the people that were seated in the room, not to the city council. Now, it goes on to talk about, because of the scientific uncertainty and the public concern, WHO has recommended that utilities explore very low-cost ways to reduce EMF exposure from new or upgraded facilities. Southern California Edison and other public utilities have been pursuing no-cost and low-cost measures to reduce electromagnetic frequency levels from new utility transmission lines and substation projects. You too may want to take a no-cost, low-cost measures to reduce your EMF exposure at home and at work. Human studies have not produced a consensus. Now, I'm going to pause there. Whenever you read the word consensus, you must understand that the very studies that are involved are advisory groups that are held, and they have usually just a few choices of the direction that they go with implementing policies. Choice A, B, or sometimes C. That's it. So if you sit in on one of these advisory councils, you can't think out of the box between those A, B, or C choices. This is how we have been manipulated. It's called the Delphi technique. So it goes on to say how we can be responsible in our homes to reduce EMF exposure by limiting the time we spend using personal appliances, such as hair dryers, electric razors, heating pads, and electric blankets. You may also want to limit the time you spend using electric cooking appliances. You can locate the sources of EMF in your work environment and spend break times in lower field areas. So right now, I'm going to suggest on stopthecrime.net, on our resource, actually on our solutions page, I have a phone number to a company in Canada that sells these small EMF indicators. And I've tried many. My husband and I have spent many dollars over the years. And this has been the easiest one for me to use. And Yana, they are the best that I can recommend. You can easily, they come in a hard little case, like the size of a pack of cigarettes. And they have a toggle, one that will make the sound of the frequencies and one that you can turn off. And it has color codes to indicate where it's safe and then where it's less safe, and then where the red is really you should vacate immediately. And that's on stopthecrime.net. It's an EMF little gadget that we've purchased and had over the years. So I just want to make everyone aware. We're all told in our inserts what is happening in our statements. Read them. They tell you what you need to know. Do not discard the fine-printed inserts. Take a look at all of them, even in your gas bills and even in your water bills. Yana and I were talking earlier about the intent to use water as a warfare-based mechanism, and that is absolutely true. Even in my utility bill, it talks about the use of certain types of carcinogens that can cause increased toxins in the water supply, according to the state of California, and can cause various types of cancer, just in what the utilities are doing in the process of keeping their systems up and running. So, Yana, this is my emergency alert for this evening. There's many things I could talk about. I guess I'll end it by saying this is Wednesday, and it is October the 14th of 2020. Please go to stopthecrime.net and subscribe and hit the bell notification so that you'll get our email blast outs and get our posted videos. And also understand, we here in Northern California and many places west of the Mississippi River are in massive deployment now of fire technologies. Today, we're being told that California braces for renewed fire threats. Yes, we are. They're telling us that over 162,000 people face power outages for the next few days. They then talk about how a robot RS, that's Richard Sally 3, RS3, can battle flames, too dangerous for humans. So it looks like they're going to be working on turning over firefighting to robots and eliminating humans. And so we are facing an arsonist hit now in California and other states as well. This is big tech. This is fire weather weapons again. So we're in stress on stress here. And we are on fire watch this evening through Saturday morning. We expect that there will be again over 162,000 homes that will have their power turned off. And Yana, recently you and I did a video about the power grid being shut down worldwide. And I think it's very important for everybody that is listening, if you're going to consider moving your assets out of your banks because of force majeure, you may want to consider, as many have and are, buying equipment that will allow you to sustain yourself off the grid as long as possible. So what do we mean by off the grid? We're talking about not having your utilities, your electricity, provided to you by your energy company. We're talking about not having your water supplied to you through a municipal water supply because it's poisoned and it's toxic. We're talking about not needing to have gas because a couple weeks ago, Gavin Newsom here in California said by the year 2035, new cars will not be sold or manufactured in California that run on petroleum-based products. Well, here in Marin, California, an area just north of San Francisco, announced yesterday they're going to beat that target date by 10 years. They're going to eliminate all petroleum-based vehicles by the year 2025.
Wow.
Now, I know it's going to happen sooner than that. So this is the plan. We've been talking about this plan, Yana. I know that people need to look this up, but what you can do is you can look up a climate emergency resolution and look it up in your area, or just look it up in any town. They're all the same. It just has a different header. These are all pre-planned documents that ricochet through every city, every county, nationwide and worldwide. And these climate emergency resolutions are being adopted and have been being adopted now for the last couple of years, and they're ongoing with their adoption. While some areas don't have the emergency aspect of that adopted, they have climate action plans already adopted. So now they're adding emergency to the already adopted climate action plans. We face more than most people will be able to understand. We are truly on our own. So consider force majeure. Find out at your bank if this is part of an agreement that suddenly you find that you're in with your bank, and understand your power is going to be shut off, and you're going to have extra water, because the first thing that diminishes rapidly in a power outage is the ability to get to water. So start spending your resources on water and food. So, Yana, I really appreciate the opportunity to get this information out about force majeure. I was so surprised when I found it as an insert, and I hope that everyone else heard me read the utility insert about EMF, and the fact that they said, given the uncertainty of the issue,
wow.
Well,
Deborah,
conclusions remain unchanged.
That's interesting that they inserted this information about EMF, because up until recently they were totally denying that it has any negative effects on humans, right? They were just denying this.
Well, they lie and they tell the truth.
Right.
And that's what I've discovered.
Yes.
And it's a matter of just looking at what they tell you, and then the documentation and the proof that we have, because the use of EMF and frequencies has been used for military weapon systems. We've talked about that. Also for mind control. And I just want to read some information that I just received prior to speaking with you. This came in by a contributor to StopTheCrime.net, and I feel that this is important to read. Prudent preparations must accelerate along all supply lines. The Great Reset advances. As noted many times, these updates expanding non-human COVID control measures, and it is the worst or the worst thus far. Please pay particular attention to the claims of the Canadian government linked below. They foresee supply line shortages, food shortages, economic collapse, universal income for all, expectations of COVID 2020 and COVID 21, and generally a continuous stream of rolling infections, employing incarceration, death camps to hide the depopulation agenda. So we're on our own. Everybody can feel that. If you are unaware, well, then I guess you're just unaware. If you listen, and when you listen to information like this and you do not act, your actions are creating the solutions that will sadly injure many people. So the very least that I would suggest that people do, and maybe you will agree, Yana, is get information like this out far and wide. Nothing on StopTheCrime.net is prevented for free access. We want you to take anything off StopTheCrime.net or primary water contributors to our information, as I know you do as well, Yana. And I know that I'll look forward to coming back with you very soon. I'm very interested in going over the poisons and the toxins that have long been introduced into our water systems. And I also would like to go over some of the points in the NASA war document that talk about nanobots and cyborgs and eliminating humans, and smart dust and nanotags and co-opted insects and more.
Yes,
So
Deborah,
again,
we are definitely going to have a show on this NASA war document in a very soon future. I think this is very important. Also, regarding this force majeure insert that you were talking about, you know, I said earlier it's a legal theft, but I take it back. It's illegal theft because everything about it is completely illegal and criminal, as we know. And as you always say, Deborah, that we are at a war. We are in a war, and we, the citizens, are considered the enemy, and truly we are on our own. And I want to thank you, Deborah, for alerting us, for coming to program with us so many people can hear this information. And thank you for all that you do for humanity, Deborah.
Well, I want to thank you as well and your husband, Steve, for all the hard work that you both do as well. And for all that's listening, please subscribe and listen to the broadcast from Israeli News Live as well. And again, continue to follow our videos and YouTubes. We posted yesterday a 1959 Disney explanation of the weather and how the weather is controlled in 1959. If you have not seen that Disney 1959 video, you can go to stopthecrime.net, then click on the video YouTube channel, and you'll see it. I think it's the last posting that we just did yesterday, which would have been October the 12th or October 13th.
Yes.
I don't even know what day it is because we're in such a constant siege of assault here, particularly now with the next few days of likely additional fires. We don't even have the fires that were burning us up that were burning us up a few weeks ago. We have 90% containment on the fires that you were hearing about that were burning Napa, California, and Santa Rosa and Sonoma County, California. That's about 90% containment. And they're very concerned about tonight because they're expecting winds up to 50 miles an hour, low humidity, and we are very hot and very dry. And they're hoping that they can confine that fire within the containment lines that they have set up. Meanwhile, the Wallbridge fire that nearly burned into where I live about a month ago is in less containment, and we have this horrific weather events being created right now. I will add one more thing at this moment since we're talking about weather. I found a document that I was surprised I found, and I typed in World Meteorological Organization, and here's what this document tells us very briefly, and then I will certainly leave this show stand as it stands with force majeure. But this document is entitled WMO Expert Committee on Weather Modification Research, Chairman Report, July 2013. Now this should be on my resource document tab of stopthecrime.net. So there are maps in this document. It's a short document. And it says weather modification around the world. 42 countries with active cloud seeding programs. And it's all color-coded. So it's talking about all the major countries that have active cloud seeding program, precipitation enhancement programs, hail suppression programs, precipitation and hail suppression programs. Then it goes on into a color-coded map that shows cloud seeding programs in the USA, that's USA Inc., and 36 active weather modification programs. And it's astounding to see the admissions in this. And then it says activities since 2011. After China and the USA, Thailand and India have the largest investment in operational weather modification programs. There are currently 36 active operational weather modification programs in at least 9 states located in the western United States, with oftentimes multiple cloud seeding projects in the individual states, such as California, Nevada, Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, Colorado, North Dakota, Kansas, and Texas. While funding for the weather modification has increased over the past 5 years in the USA, it is still well below the levels of the 1980s. So there was more funding available in the 1980s for weather modification. India is currently one of the largest investors in weather modification research, with a major multi-year program conducted by the Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorological in Pune, India. Thailand is also embarking on major research efforts in this area. And I'll just go over, well, it just continues. It has maps, and again, this is entitled, this was from the World Meteorological Organization. Again, WMO means World Meteorological Organization. Expert Committee on Weather Modification Research. Chairman Report, July 2013. And you can find this for yourself. So again, thank you both for being a way in which we can get information out to people that will listen.
Yes, and thank you, Deborah. And interesting you speaking of this weather modification, and we are praying for you over there, over this fires issue and all these dangers that they're alerting you to. And over here in my part of the world, they are telling us that the new Madrid fault line is very active, and there is a 70% chance that we're going to have a major earthquake. So everybody's worried over here about this issue, and we all know that this is all created artificially, because I guess the cabal is ready to, they're just ready to fully unleash their genocide, right?
Well, we're going to talk about some ideas on another show. We have to really wonder why all of this is happening, to what end. Certainly we know massive depopulation, reduction of the human species, but there's more. There is more.
Yes.
And I'll look forward to discussing that more.
Yes.
But right now, again, we're on arson fire watch tonight here in Northern California. And I really appreciate your prayers, because it's exhausting to be in and out of continual fires and smoke, and the concern that you might get burned out, that you might only get off your property with what you can carry in a backpack. And while many people I know plan on staying and defending, because we are on our own and we know this, many people have made preparations, even down to getting the fire gear that they need to wear. And so we're at war, we're on a battlefield, we're the enemy, and we need to be wearing the right clothes to be in the kinds of fights and the kind of reality that we are all existing in now. No one is going to save us. Nobody. It's up to all of us to work together as best we can to help one another get through all of the deadly technology and the evil that surrounds us all, with the intentions of those that thrive from evil and misery.
Yes. Well, thank you, Deborah, again. Thank you for listening. This was Deborah Tavares from stopthecrime.net, and you all have a good night.